College, good folks, still friends. He'd grown up in church, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. She had too, church camp, mission trips, the whole 9 yards, all of it. And so they meet in college, they get married, they move away, they begin a life somewhere else. They find a new town to live in, they find a new house to live in, they find careers, they have a child. They love God, they love each other. Some Sundays they went to church, some they didn't. Sometimes the baby didn't sleep, baby had a fever. This is a true story, I'm not making this up. This is around 2020, and so we all remember what it was like when churches had to shut down. And so not only was the baby not sleeping and having a fever sometimes, we were kind of shut down. In addition to that, work was draining for both of them. They were at sometimes between jobs, and life at times was just a struggle. Some weekends they'd travel, they'd get out of town and go on little trips here and there, different places, go back home, see family, stuff like that. It's not that they were anti-church, they weren't mad at church, they were not angry at God, they weren't mad at God or anything like that. They hadn't gone atheist at this point. They were just busy, they were tired. You'd ask them how life was going, and they would say, it's pretty busy. Life's pretty full for us right now. And of course it is. We've been there. Most of us have been there, where you've grown up and you've moved somewhere, or you stayed somewhere, and you got a job, and you got a spouse, and you started a family, and you go to work every day, and life gets busy. You've been there, and I've been there. They're still believers. They're still Christians. If you ask them, they're still Christians. They still would pray at meals before they go to bed at night. They talk about getting more involved at church one day, someday, down the road. But slowly, and I watched this happen in real time, slowly they drifted. They never made a decision to do it. They didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, why don't we back away a little bit? Without any decision being made, the fire that once burned in them seems like it kind of burned out. Have you ever known somebody like that? You ever seen that happen in somebody's life? You ever noticed it in yours? Because the scary part about this whole thing is they didn't even notice. We talk from time to time, and they didn't notice. We talk about what was going on, and it's like they didn't miss it, didn't long for it, didn't thirst for it. Sound familiar? Sound maybe a little bit too familiar? They didn't plan to drift, they just did. And I got a feeling that they're not alone. I know that they're not alone. We read a few minutes ago the entirety of Psalm 42, and it's a beautiful psalm. Psalm 42 is beautiful. I'd like for us to think about Psalm 42 and 43. These are ancient texts. The Psalms are the song book of Israel, and so these are songs that they know. Like we know church songs, they know church songs, and these are their church songs. These are the songs that they sing as they worship God. We still sing some of these songs. If you read the first verse of this is a song. As the deer pants for the water, as the deer pants for flowing streams, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? Do you hear the words there? The thirst, the desire, the longing, the motivation for God. And as abstract as that may sound to us in our modern hearing, it was real for them. It was real for the sons of Korah who wrote this. As the deer pants for the water, his soul is longing for God. He knows what it's like to feel the presence of God, to know the presence of God, as we would describe it. He knows what it's like to be close to God, to worship God with joy, to sing songs of praise without feeling like you've got to, without it being forced, right? He knows what that is like. But then he says in Psalm 42, verse 5, his demeanor's changed a bit. And it's gone from my soul longs for you, O God, to looking at his soul and saying, why are you cast down? What's with the turmoil within me? Hope in God, and I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. He says the same thing down in verse 11, Psalm 42, verse 11. Why are you cast down? Right? What happened to the motivation, the longing, the desire? Why are we cast down, my soul? What's with the turmoil within me? Hopefully, again, we will hope in God. The next psalm goes right along with it, Psalm 43, verse 5. Why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, and again, I shall praise him. And so now it seems like the psalmist has gone from, or can go from, desiring to be present with God, loving God, feeling like worship is not forced. And he gets to a point where he seems to be spiritually dry. And he remembers the fire, and I think at times he longs for that fire. He just doesn't have the fire anymore. He knows what it was like, right? You can think back to the days. If this is you, and you know it's you can think back to the days when you enjoyed the things that are kind of a drudge these days. Can you think back to the times when it was a happier time and not such a chore to read your Bible, to force yourself to pray, to force yourself to go to church, when the fire still burns? Does that sound familiar? Does it maybe sound familiar? It's not good to pretend that it's not true if it is, okay? And so if you can put yourself in the shoes of the psalmist, put yourself in the psalmist's shoes. And let's not pretend like everything's okay. This doesn't work today. If we're just going to pretend like everything's okay when it's really not. All right, let's not pretend the fire still burns if the fire has kind of gone out. My friends, the couple I mentioned earlier, they don't think of their life as being in crisis. They don't think of their life as being just in trouble right now. They think of their life as busy. Trying to make it to the end of the week, trying to make it to the weekend, trying to make it to the next vacation, trying to make it to bedtime at the end of every day, right? They just think of life as busy. They don't hate God. They don't hate the church. They don't hate Christianity. There's no big scandal at church. There's no big fight. There's nothing like that. They just got busy. They got tired. Life got full. And they slowly seem to have forgotten what it's like to be drawn to God. For some of us, the words that begin Psalm 42, as the deer pants for the water, my soul longs for you. For some of us, those words seem hollow. We sing those words. And for some of us, every time we sing those words, it's a hollow, distant thought, not our current experience at all. It's what maybe we used to be, and it may be what we hope one day we are again, but it's not who we are right now. Sometimes we don't thirst. And we've forgotten what it's like to be thirsty. I think the Psalms give us language for that longing. But if the longing is not there anymore, then what do you do? Would you turn your Bibles to 1 Kings chapter 19? 1 Kings chapter 19. What about when we don't have the energy to even long anymore? Like the psalmist is saying, I remember what it's like to long for the Lord. I remember what it's like to long for God and to desire that presence. But I'm cast down right now. There's turmoil in my soul. Something's just not right now. I realize it, and I remember what it's like when it's not. Sometimes we can even go beyond that. I think that's where we meet a man named Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19. Elijah, if you know the name, you probably know he's a great prophet. He's the called down fire from heaven, Elijah. But in chapter 19, he just is on the run, and he collapses. We'll pick up at verse 1. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and Elijah had done a lot. I mean, he's winning battles against prophets. He's standing up to some of the most powerful people around, the king and his wife, Jezebel. I mean, her name is synonymous with trouble, and he's fighting against that. Jezebel told all that Elijah had done and killed all the prophets with the sword, and Jezebel sent messengers to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Well, that'd be a struggle, all right? Knowing that very powerful people have it out for you. Then he was afraid, and he arose, and he ran for his life, and he came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and he left his servant there. But he goes a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, it's enough now, Lord. Take away my life. I'm no better than my fathers. Elijah at this point has done, I think, pretty much everything right. Fought against evil, stood up for the truth, prayed bold prayers, did a lot of great things, kind of like the early years of my friends that I'm telling you about. And now Elijah is on the run. He doesn't like what life has become. He lays down under a tree and says, Lord, I've had enough. I believe I'm done with this now, he says. Maybe, I don't know, Elijah expected revival, and instead he gets death threats. He thinks maybe his faithfulness is going to spark a nationwide awakening and a revival, and it hasn't yet. And so instead, Elijah feels alone. He feels definitely misunderstood. He's forgotten. It's not that Elijah is anti-God. All right, he hasn't given up his faith. He just, when you read the text, he just seems numb. He seems like he's burned out. I've had enough, tired. I'm done with this. If you read through the text, and we're not going to take the time to do it, the surprising thing to me about this whole story is not what God does, it's what God doesn't do. Elijah's on the run, he's tired, he's burned out, he's done with it all. He says, I've had enough of this, Lord. And God doesn't scold him. He doesn't berate him. He doesn't push him to be louder and try harder or anything like that. If you read 1 Kings chapter 19, what God does is he lets Elijah sleep. And then he tells him to sleep some more. And then he feeds him. And then a few days later, after he's rested and after he's had some food and God has provided for him and taken care of him and sustained him along the way, he doesn't meet him in an earthquake or in a big fire or anything that's spectacular like that. It's just a small, still, whispering voice. And so spiritual revival doesn't always start with something huge. Sometimes it's something very small, maybe a whisper that we've forgotten how to hear or that we're not even listening for anymore. Maybe something that we've crowded out because we've been too busy and life has become just too full for us to hear. And so Elijah's this great deep man of faith who reached a burnout breaking point, and he tells God, I am done. He sounds a lot like my friends. He may sound a lot like you and me, but God still reaches out to him. Now, what if we've gone even beyond that? What if we're past the psalmist, remembering what it's like, but just not being there right now? We've gone past Elijah where he says, I'm done with all this. What if we may have gone past that even further? Luke chapter 8, we meet an interesting man. We don't know a whole lot about the man we meet in Luke chapter 8, except that he has found himself on some really, really hard times. No hope, no thought of revival in his life, no desire to stop and think about it and pray about it and try to find his way back to the Lord. No thought of thirsting for God anymore. This man seems to not even have the capacity to do this. This man lives in a graveyard among the tombs. He is absolutely not himself. And I mean that in some pretty literal ways. He's not himself anymore. He's possessed. He's tormented. He's naked. He's alone. He is not at all the man that he used to be. He sounds kind of like the psalmist. He sounds kind of like Elijah when you describe it that way. He's not who he used to be. Everybody avoids this man. Jesus does not avoid him. What you read about in Luke chapter 8 is Jesus crossing a sea and braving a storm and walking quite literally into the chaos of this man's life. And he does it just for him. Now, we'll read it real quick, and I want you to notice what you don't see in this. Look for the time when this man pleads with God to do something. They sailed, this is verse 26, to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite of Galilee, and Jesus had stepped out on the land. There met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he'd worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house but among the tombs. And when he saw Jesus, he cried and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, what have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of God, or Son of the Most High? I beg you, do not torment me. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. He would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. And Jesus said, what is your name? And he said, Legion, for many demons have entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. But a large herd of pigs was feeding there in the hillside. And they begged him to let them enter these. And so he gave him permission. Then the demons came out of the man, entered the pigs. The herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. Jesus did that for this man. He doesn't ask for help. He's not there yet. I don't know that this man has the ability to ask for that help. I don't know that he knows what help is anymore. The only request that comes out of this man is, don't torment us. He doesn't know where to start. But the Lord does. And so the Lord speaks a word. He drives out the darkness, and the man is going to put clothes on. He's going to get back into his right mind, and he's going to find out what Jesus has for him. When the herdsmen saw what happened, they fled and told it to the city and in the country, and the people went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man was healed. Then all the people from the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them. They were seized with great fear. And so he got in the boat and returned, and the man from whom the demons had gone begged now that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away and said, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. And so that man goes away proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. He didn't ask for that help. The man is approached by God in the flesh, and Jesus frees him and welcomes him back home without the man ever seeking God in the first place. What if it were still possible that a spiritual revival kind of like that doesn't wait for us to learn how to seek God? What if we realize that God's been crossing the chaos, entering the chaos to come and find us before we've even thought to reach back out to him? This man in Luke chapter 8, he doesn't seek Jesus. He didn't know what healing was anymore, but Jesus crosses through a storm to go and get him. And it makes me wonder, and it may make you wonder, what would it take? What would it take for somebody who is spiritually numb, not angry, not intentionally rebellious, just tired, full, drifted, not what we used to be, not quite right now seeking God? What would it take for somebody like that to wake up again? What would it take? My friends, the ones I told you about earlier, get to the point where they're not seeking God, they're just burned out, they're tired, they're full, they're not bad people, they're not hostile to Christianity, they're just kind of numb. And so a week or two, I'm talking to my friend about going back to church, pray again, read the Bible again. And he said, and this was in a text message, so I can quote it to you. He said, I don't know what to do. I don't want to go to church to begin with. I know that it's selfish, and I guess I'll pray through it. Can you take a step back for just a minute and think about, what would you tell this person who's drifted? Not angry, not hostile, just kind of got busy, didn't make a decision to quit, didn't wake up one morning and say, I think I'm done with this. They just woke up one morning and that's where they were. What would you tell that person? What would it take? What would ever break through? What would interrupt their apathy? Maybe you don't have to think about this other person at all. Because maybe it's you. Could you consider that for a minute? What would it take if it wasn't somebody else? If it was me? Or if it was you? Maybe a intentionally taken time, a moment of quiet honesty to decide where I am spiritually. Maybe that'd be a start. Maybe a memory that's stirred by something that we read in the Bible. We'd have to intentionally be going to the Bible to do that. Maybe it'd be like a question of a child, your child, that spurs something in you. Maybe a friend's invitation or a conversation with a friend would do it. Maybe a question that you've got about life, a big question about life that you're having a hard time answering. Any of these things could be the small step, not that you're making towards God, but that God is making towards you. I mean, we believe that God is still active, right? We believe that God still works. Could he work through the question of a child? I think so. Could he work through a conversation with a friend to reignite some kind of fire within you? I think that he could. And so maybe we don't entertain these questions as just a question from a kid, or these deep questions in our lives as just questions that I don't have an answer to right now, or conversations with a friend, not just as a conversation with a friend. Could it be God walking through the chaos again? We're not even seeking him right now, but he's seeking us. You may not be in pursuit right now, but maybe God is in pursuit of you. The Spirit still works. Jesus still steps ashore in our lives to confront us, to challenge us, and to welcome us back. And revival may not begin with a sermon. In fact, a lot of times it doesn't. It doesn't always begin with a sermon. It may begin in a living room, in a message that you get, or a message that you send, a conversation that you have where God is reaching out to you. Maybe a quiet drive where you can think, a long overdue prayer, or a couple saying, you know what? Why don't we try again? Why don't we try it again? In Galatians chapter 3, you read some words of Paul, and in verse 27, he tells the Galatians, all of you who were baptized into Christ, you have put on Christ. And the word that he uses there really means you have clothed yourselves with Christ. It's not just that you believe again. That's not what I'm asking you to do here, okay? I'm asking us to remember who we are, that we have put on Christ, that we who are Christians, we have been clothed with Christ. It's not just what we believe, it's who we are, it's who we've been. You are not just a spouse, you're not just a husband, you're not just a wife, you're not just a child, you're not just a parent. You're clothed with Christ. And maybe we've forgotten what that feels like. Maybe we've forgotten what responsibility that lays upon our shoulders. And maybe this is a wake-up call that we need. It's not too late. It is not too late. Especially if you notice that it's still missing. If you notice that the hunger that used to be there is not there anymore. The thirst that used to be there, it's not there anymore. The fire that used to burn, it's not there anymore. The consistency in your approach to Christianity that used to be there, it's just not there anymore. And you're not reading your Bible anymore. And you're not praying anymore. And you're not finding time to spend time with Christian people anymore. And you realize, I used to be that way and I'm not that way anymore, then it's not too late. Or if you realize that maybe even though you're not pursuing God right now, that God still pursues us through questions and through conversations and through people that he providentially puts in our path every day, you realize that, then it's not too late if you notice that it's missing. My friend that I told you about in the beginning, the fire's not come back yet. They're still kind of in the swirl of all of it. They still got busy schedules. They still got little kid. But today, talked to him this morning, and they're going back to church today. Will it last? I don't know. We'll see. I hope it does. But lately, I do know that he's talking more about the tougher questions of life, and I know that she's talking about finding a way to get back into church, and I think they both feel a strange pull that they are unable to explain. And that's tough on them, but man, it's good news to me. That's where I want to leave them, right there. And I want to leave them there because this sermon is not about them. It's about you. About me. It's about us. Because maybe that's where we are. Apathetic, a little bit pulled back, not what we used to be, not in pursuit right now, not seeking God right now. The thirst, though we kind of remember it, it's kind of gone right now. But maybe that apathy is not the end. Maybe that's just the silence before we wake up. Maybe the fire's not completely gone out. The embers are still there, and it just needs somebody to breathe on it, to put a little life back in it. Do you sense that maybe the fire that used to burn within you is pretty low right now? And do you want to rekindle that fire? If the answer to that is yes, and I'm not telling you that it is, right? I hope that it is. But if the answer to that is yes, if I know that I'm not what I used to be, and I know that I used to be a bit stronger, a bit more on fire, a bit more thirsty, a bit more hungry for God, and I'm just not there anymore right now. But if you know that that is missing, and you want to do something about it, can I give you some options? And pick one and just try it. Pick one and try one thing. 7 days. It's not long. It's a week. 7 days. Read the Bible. Not all day. Not an hour a day. 7 days. If it's been a while. Chapter a day. Book of James. Gospel of John. Pick one. Chapter 2, 3 a day. 10 minutes every day. Try it. Maybe that's the way God works. Or for 7 days, at the same time, dedicate yourself to praying. I'm not saying pray for an hour. Just give it some time. Maybe a minute or two. 5, 10 minutes. Same time every day. Set a reminder on your phone. Do it. And maybe that's the way that God is pursuing us. Or maybe today you talk to a friend that you trust, that you can say to this person, hey, look, not what it was. The fire that used to burn, it's not there anymore. I just don't feel it anymore. What's going on? Try a conversation with a friend that you trust. I think we believe that God still works. I hope we believe that God still works. And it may be that if we try one of these things, this is how God can work in our lives today. This is how we draw near to God, James tells us, so that he will draw near to us. This is how we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. It's by doing different things with our minds so that we can be transformed. And so try something. If you realize that something that used to be present is missing today, that's half the battle. You realize it, then do something and try something. Draw near to God. And my guess is that if you're consistent in drawing near to God, then you'll find that he's also drawing near to you. Try one thing. And in 7 days, let's see how it works. Maybe today you have a choice that you want to make to become a Christian, to be baptized into Christ, to clothe yourself with Christ, as Paul writes in Galatians chapter 3. And maybe today you're ready to do that. Wash away the past guilt, the sins, come up out of the waters, ready to live a new kind of life, to start this journey of drawing near to God. Maybe you're ready to do that today. Or maybe you're ready today to rekindle the fire that's almost gone out, but the embers, they're still there. And with a little breath on them, little wind, try a little thing, maybe that fire comes back to life.